Good evening, everybody. We are not live from Something Else Bar and Grill tonight. We are putting a pause on our in-person shows only temporarily as we continue to fight through here internally in terms of our athletic department for all the COVID protocols that our teams are going through. But everyone is safe and sound here as we start off our coaches show, as we do each and every week with Chad Killinger, head coach of Indiana State women's basketball, as the Sycamores will be back in action tomorrow night here in Terre Haute at Holman Center. We hope everybody can make their way out for that one, for this rivalry game between the Purple Aces and Sycamores. Coach K, good to see you via Zoom. Just how are you and the team doing, and getting ready and geared up for another game tomorrow, as we are in this world of postponements, rearranging calendars, and you might as well not get used to playing games on a typical regimen because things are going to change rapidly, right?
Yeah, and that was, that's one thing. I don't know if you say a deterrent or something about the rescheduling process, is just how it affects the rest of your week. Not playing last Thursday, and moving that game to Tuesday, then that changes, our plans and what days we have to have off and everything. And so, I'm a planner and try to be organized. So we really had mapped out our January calendar or February calendar already, and then so when these games get moved around, it's just tougher because you got to change, and you have to give them you have to have so many days off, and if you got 3 games in a week, then you can take 2 days off the next week and things like that. So the NCAA is trying to work with us in terms of those items, but it just makes it a little bit harder in terms of trying to plan and trying to know what's best. And for us, it's different because we're at the most we're going to have 10 healthy kids anyway, and so when we're missing one, we're practicing with 9. We've since Thanksgiving, I think it's been about 55 days or so. We've only had 6 practices where we've had 10 kids in practice. So we've been on we've handled that pretty well so far, but as the season goes on, that's just going to wear on our team a little bit more, I think.
How do you describe that challenge? I think many fans understand, they hear the numbers and they understand that the difficulty of it, but from your seat of, look, you want to go hard in practice, right? To make sure you're prepared for games. You get games shifted around. Now, this is going to be 3 games this week for you, which is obviously not typical that you go through this in terms of the conference. How do you make sure you structure your practices, you structure your time the right way where you're going to be your best on a game day? But also, I think you've done a great job of, Coach, this year, not to just toot your own horn, is you really make the stuff you can't control a big deal. Whether that's
that's one thing. If we're whining and crying about it, then I think the players would whine and cry about it as well. But we, we try to do structure practice to where certain things that we need to work on to prepare for an opponent. We're doing it in a 3-on-3 setting or 4-on-4 setting, eliminating a spot, maybe within their offense, and making sure our kids understand, in the game, there's going to be a 5th person here. This is how we're trying to guard this. And, I think from an offensive standpoint, it hurts you a little more because you can't really work on your offense 5-on-5. Whereas the defense, you can break some things down, and offensively you can do that as well. We do a lot of shooting drills that are just breakdowns within our offense, but at the same time, like not being able to just even transition 5-on-5 makes it a little more difficult in terms of preparation. But the girls, they just show up and do what we ask them to do, and that's really all we can all do right now.
I feel like you have to be the front runner in the league in terms of Scout Team Player of the Year. Do you feel like you're in the running?
Well, I haven't taken any shots. I think I've taken one, and I usually run the point. So, and usually I do that just so I can kind of orchestrate what needs to be happening. But and I enjoy doing that, and it's just simpler for me. From a scouting preparation standpoint, I take our team through all that, and so it's it's interesting. They're all probably wanting to guard me because they know it's probably the easiest assignment they're going to have all year.
Does Rachel get the itch at all when she sees you or want to come
Not at all? No, she's well beyond wanting to be on the court. But yeah, and it's been, like we've with the Omicron variant and everything, my kids haven't been at practice as much. Josie came Sunday, but we've tried to separate a little bit with them going to school and everything. And so they haven't been around as much, but yeah, and then it's that makes it tough, because that's one thing I enjoy as the head coach, and I know our players enjoy, when our kids are around, but just trying to do what's best for the program right now. So we've backed off of that a little bit.
Well, let's kind of take a little bit of a break from basketball today. Of course, I didn't mention it right off the top, but being Martin Luther King Day. And I feel like this has always been a very important day, and to recognize what Martin Luther King did. But of course, in today's day, age, and climate, where there's so many more social issues being pushed to the forefront, that's something I know you have taken very, very seriously during your time, and not just during your time here, just during your time as a coach overall. What have you tried to do today, and not just today, but throughout the year and throughout your program, to make sure that you recognize individuals and what Martin Luther King has done and did do, but also make sure that your team really understands the impact that he had, and also make sure that those social issues that are so prevalent today are addressed, and make sure everybody has a voice within your program?
Yeah, I think one thing I do is I try to let them in and understand a little bit about my own background, and growing up, two parents that worked and probably didn't have jobs that they enjoyed going to every day, but they did what they had to do for us to have food and be able to do the things that we did in terms of playing sports and what have you. But today we talked about three of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. And then after each, I had one of the players read the quote, and then after they got done, I kind of talked about what that meant to me and everything. And I've been fortunate enough that when we were at East Carolina, we were able to go to Washington D.C. and visit the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial that they have there. It's really an incredible. All those monuments are incredible, but that one was really neat to see and have our kids there and let them see and read some of the quotes that are on the walls and some of the different things that they have on display. And then we had signed a young lady from Roswell, Georgia, when I was at Nicholls State. And so I told her I was coming to a game. This is like 9-hour drive. And we went up there on her senior night, and I took Elijah with me. And so we went up there a day early, so that the day of her game, that we spent that day at the national park there in downtown Atlanta. And we're able to go and visit his burial site and the King Center and see the church there and everything. So, and then today I was just encouraging our girls to, like, hey, if you're, if you get a chance to go to Washington D.C., if you're in Atlanta, it's worth your time to go and see see that part of our history. And really, one of the things I feel like we do is we try to make sure that our like all of our players come from different backgrounds. And just understanding that, one of the things we said today is it's easy to judge people by how they look or the clothes they wear or whatever. And the thing that I was telling them was, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever. We're going to judge people, but let's judge people for the right reasons. Like the content of their heart and what they're really about, and not, necessarily, like I said, what they look like, how they dress. And one thing we always tell recruits is, everybody's different. Like, it doesn't matter if you got a kid from Detroit, you got a kid from St. Louis, those aren't the same people. They're not raised the same. The school systems aren't the same. Their background's not going to be the same in terms of who's in their life and what family they have for them. And then at the same point, if you get a kid from a small town in Ohio and a kid from a small town in Indiana, those aren't going to be the same. They're not the same people. There's differences with everybody. And just, I think one of the great things you learn in college is just how to communicate with people from different backgrounds. And one area where I think, athletics plays such a huge role is just getting those individuals to become a team. And that's something that I've always taken a lot of pride in, is being able to maybe get past some of those differences. And you never know who a kid's best friend is going to be when they get here and everything. And, I know Hattie's family owns, a horse, I guess we'd call it a ranch. They've got, and I know some of the players go down there and ride horses and do things that they probably would never get an opportunity to do. So, from that standpoint, I don't think it's something that, I think a lot of coaches, when all this stuff really first happened with George Floyd and everything, people were making statements, people were making T-shirts, and it was all a big show. Like, I don't know that they were really invested in any kind of causes or anything. They were, coaches were just putting out generic statements, and I didn't like that part of it because I just felt like they were saying it to save face or whatever. And I don't think you have to make t-shirts and make statements all the time. I think the best thing you can do is just be a great example for your players, and how to live the best life you possibly can. And again, not judge people by, how they look or anything else.
No question. I just felt that was really important for sure to address that.
Yeah.
And also the impact that your team has had internally with all those different backgrounds. I appreciate you sharing all of that. As we kind of get back to basketball here, Coach, look, the next week is always the biggest, but I feel like this week for your team, you got a really great chance. Not that you've not shown how much improvement you've made, but this is a really big opportunity week for your group. Evansville, of course, regional rival, your travel partner, but then going on the road, the two difficult places in Loyola and Valpo. But these are three games that can really, I feel like, showcase how much more improvement your group has made this year.
Well, and it's hard. It's something when you look at scores from last year, I really don't even do that until after the game's over, maybe. And I look and see, we lost by 30 to Bradley and we beat them by 16 this year. I don't know that any of that's relevant, but at the same time, I think, from the outside looking in, I think it's easy to look at those scores and be like, man, they've gotten better. They're improved. I think our girls know we've improved, and each game brings a different challenge, especially for us being, like I said, this will be our 5th straight game with a completely different roster. And so it's really a testament to our young ladies that they've just stepped up, and different people have stepped up in different games and performed. And it probably makes us hard to scout. You don't know, you don't know what team we're going to be putting on the floor. And but again, we've not made a big deal about it. We just show up and do the best we can, and that's really all you can do right now. I mean, it's we want to win games, but we also just want to go out and compete and have opportunities to compete, and so that's really what we're striving for.
Do you feel like one of the areas you told me early on this year, and you've said it on this show multiple times, is to get the women to believe they can win? Do you feel now that this is a group, and no question, where you get towards the end of the game, you have 100% confidence that it's not one of those things where maybe they still have things to learn, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's like they know they can win this thing, that they can pull it out.
Yeah, I think they do. And one of the I won't even say which team. We played a team this year that one of the assistant coaches had been with another program in the past and came here and played. And the comment that was made was, I looked down there during warmups and the kids are laughing and they're smiling and they're focused and getting ready. And he's like, it was a different atmosphere. And so, I think that's part of that confidence and that belief they have in themselves. And we feel like if we do things the right way and we play well, we have a chance against anybody. But we also know, as competitive as this league is, you could lose every time out. You could win every time out. I mean, it's just, you don't know what's going to happen. And so I think developing that quickly, and a friend of mine that coaches in the Big Ten, we were talking the other night, and he was like, man, your kids play so hard. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of like downplaying it. And he was like, no, you don't understand. That's that's hard to get kids to just play hard all the time. And so for us, I mean, that's, that was the number one step, I think, this year. So, midway through that first year to have people noticing that and mentioning it as much as they have, I think has been big. And I think that helps the coach's confidence as well as the player's confidence.
I feel like too, even though you're not there every day, got to tip the cap to the job Robin's been doing down at Evansville. That was another kind of really difficult rebuilding job. I don't think there was any secret that when teams saw that they would have a road weekend with Indiana State and Evansville, I think many people thought they could look at it as a bye weekend in the past, to be honest. And now, they're 7-7 overall in the year. They're 1-2. They beat Bradley. They've really had some major improvements as well. And for you, what do you see? Even though I know you may not pay attention to a ton of the film last year, but where do you see what Robin's done so well and why her team seems to be believing as well, just like your group believes in you?
Well, I think style of play is big for them. They're pressing and they seem to talk a lot about offensive pace, and that's basically like, how many possessions that you're going to get throughout a game. So they're trying to create some extra possessions through some pressing and then playing a little bit faster pace from on the offensive end. And so I think, when you have some success, I think it's easy to start buying in a little bit. We started off 1-4. So I think it would have been easy for us to kind of turn the other way. But I think that, that Georgia Southern win was big, and I think that kind of jump started some things for us. But I really think that's it. I think they enjoy the way they're playing this year, with the pressing and then the playing pretty fast and attacking off the dribble and getting some spot up threes. And so I think those things are all things that have kind of played into that for them. But it is different now. Whereas people were looking at, I agree. They probably looked at, the weekend trip with us or hosting the two of us was probably, looked at as, well, we're going to get 2 wins and be ready to get ready for the next week. And I think that just makes the league better as a whole. When there aren't those weekends where you just know that you're probably going to pull out a win.
I know so much is on yourself internally, but as you look to tomorrow night, what are really the biggest keys that you're hammering with your group to get back out there since you were able to get that big win against Bradley?
Yeah, I think mainly taking care of the basketball against that press and being ready to attack it for hopefully get some easy baskets against it. And when you do that, I think that the pressure starts to cease a little bit. Whereas if you're pressing somebody and they turn the ball over, the pressure just continues to mount and the team gets confidence. So I think if we handle that and get the ball across half court, put ourselves in position to score some quick, easy baskets, then that obviously bodes well in our favor. And then really slowing them down in transition. Their point guard does a really good job of pushing the ball. They're trying to play again at a pretty fast pace offensively. I was hoping to play at a little faster pace than what we are this year, but I feel like what we needed to do to be successful kind of changed. And in that regard, we've started kind of letting our girls play at the pace they want to play at. And so, we play fast when we need to, and we kind of slow it down when we need to. So, being able to play different styles that way, I think is very beneficial as well. But that transition game we've really got to do a good job with that. And then they set a lot of ball screens. So our ball screen defense is going to be really important.
Should be a fun one tomorrow night. Again, if you're out and around in the area, come out. 6:00 tip-off tomorrow at Holman Center. You can listen to the game right here on 105.5 The Legend.
They need to come out. We need them out.
Come out. Yeah. You can listen to the game
bring
at the game.
Bring a handheld radio. You can still listen to the radio while you're at the game.
Totally agree. Bring in the radio. You can hear Coach K's pregame thoughts as you're sitting there watching him, scribble some stuff for his ladies as they get ready to tip it off tomorrow. Coach, glad you're doing okay. Glad everybody is ready to get going for whoever you will have tomorrow night. And appreciate the time. Continue to stay safe, and let's get a win number 1, and then let's try to get 3 this week. All right.
It's one day at a time.
One day at a time, indeed. That was Coach Killinger. We're going to take a break here on the show. When we come back, we'll catch up with head coach Josh Schertz on the men's side. This is the Indiana State Coaches Show, presented to you by 7th and L Bar and Grill on 105.5 The Legend. Coach Schertz, always good to catch up with you. Of course, doing this virtually here tonight. I know everybody just kind of take a little bit of a pause of our in-person shows, as both programs right now on the men and the women's side just kind of work through, I know, this crazy time over the last couple of weeks. One, just how are you and the team doing? I know today being Martin Luther King Day, I don't know if there's anything kind of special in terms that you guys have playing with the team, and of course, addressing the impact of what MLK has had, especially with all the recent events going on, it seems like, over the last year.
Yeah, we're gonna, do a little something. We have some video. Want to show the guys. I think it's, obviously, from my opinion, one of the, most impactful, influential people, certainly in modern times, and what he did to, promote equality and diversity, and what he did from a civil rights standpoint. was incredible. And I think, obviously, it's obviously work is still remains to be done, but if there was a dinner I could have and pick a few people, Martin Luther King would certainly be in that group. And we want our guys to certainly, understand what the day means, what his impact was. Because I think as time goes on, that can get lost with younger generations. You talk to the guys about, Michael Jordan, they have a little bit of a idea who that is, but you get, earlier, the Magic and Bird and those guys, who was that, so not Indiana State, but other places. So everybody knows who Larry Bird is here. But my point in all that is, you want to make sure they're educated and understand the sacrifices people that came before made for the opportunities that they have now, and that they take that baton and move that forward. And so that's what today will be. There'll be we'll show them, like I said, some stuff I think is important to talk about it. And then, as you got to, as the way this league works, you shift your attention to Southern Illinois, and we'll have the, autopsy process of Loyola, and they'll have their individual film. We'll have our team film, and then we'll turn the page and we'll start digging into Southern Illinois, and then go out and practice.
One of the things I really enjoyed about what you did heading into the season, I think it does somewhat relate to Martin Luther King, is you had everybody on staff and you had everybody on the roster really share some intimate things about what they've been through, whether it's been challenges they've had to overcome in their personal life, heroes in their life, and why they were. How do you as a staff and you as a leader of your team, look, you're focusing on the Salukis, you're focusing on basketball and getting ready, but also as you go throughout the year, you have such a diverse team to make sure that these issues or these topics continue to be addressed, and that it's not just basketball all the time. How do you try to kind of make sure as you go throughout your year that it's not just today, you focus on the impact of what Martin Luther King did, but it's the impact throughout the year, why you make that an important part of your program?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think, well, I don't know if you have to, but I think for me, guys understanding that there's so much more to the world than just basketball, and that the world is a big place. And there's so many, basketball is incredibly important, but there's a lot of things that are way more important going on. And guys becoming educated and informed and, active participants in society, and we're never going to sit up here and tell them, who to vote for or what to do, but to get educated on the issues, to understand what's going on, to understand, the importance of voting. Obviously, we all know the younger demographic is the least voting demographic. Unfortunately, the older demographic is as the highest percentage of voters. And so you're letting the oldest in society dictate to the youngest in society. And this group coming up, that's coming through is probably the most diverse group in American history, probably the most tolerant, and at a time where we're pretty polarized. I do have a lot of hope for the future. Seeing young kids come through, and as you coach basketball, you get to be around all different types of people from different races and different political beliefs, and different areas of the country, and different religions, and you find that there's so much more. We have so much more in common than we do. That divides us. There's so much more in common, and that there's tremendous strength in diversity. And a lot of times when people are hate something or dislike something, it stems from fear of it or ignorance, right? That's usually where hate stems from. And when you get to be around people of all walks of life, and you get to spend time with them and intimate time with them, like I said, there's tremendous strength in that diversity, and guys and helping guys to understand and take a 10,000 foot view of the world and what's going on, not just here in the United States, but across the world. And we try to do as much as we can to create that. I think it's healthy. Basketball is a huge part of us, but having a balance in your life and not being consumed just with that, and them, like I said, leaving out of here informed, educated, and active participants in society is the goal for each of our guys, and finding and understanding what they believe in and why they believe in it. And so That's to me a big part of our process here in terms of what we need to do as a program for these guys to go on and be successful in life.
Let's get back into basketball. I know, a tough loss on Saturday night to Loyola. It was a great crowd, a really good environment. Students really showed out. I know the community really came out in terms of to support you and the team. 64-56, the final. Yes, we talked about, and I asked you in our pregame conversation, Coach, are you full strength? And you said, yes, we are in terms of guys that are dressing, but also the conditioning aspect and getting guys fully go. Probably still a little bit of ways away from that. I'm not saying that was the reason why late Loyola pulled away, but could you sense as the game was going on that, yes, maybe you had more bullets in your gun per se that you could use in the game, but knew that, okay, we're not quite everybody having their legs underneath them and 100% by the fact?
Yeah, I mean, we knew that going into the game that, guys are returning. And I think, there's a percent, okay, you got this guy back and he's good. And in basketball, these guys are so highly conditioned and they work so hard. And when you take a 7-day or 8-day break because of COVID and you have the 5 days isolation and you have a, 3-day return to play, some guys it was 4 days. You're not going to walk back in after 8 or 9 days away from basketball and just, pick it up. And it's like, oh man, I'm ready to roll. Like you have to kind of, reintegrate yourself. And we only had, for some guys 2, some guys 1 practice to do so. And that's not an excuse. Like we didn't, lose to Loyola because of that by any stretch. We got beat. There's a variety of reasons that we lost the game. One, which, is, and I think people don't do that, is you got to credit the opponent. One, Loyola is really, really good. And Drew and his staff made 2 great adjustments. They moved Knight on to Jabo, which really, I thought Knight did an outstanding job in the post guarding Jabo one-on-one. They didn't have to bring help, which usually creates advantages for us. And he was able to stay down and force Jabo in a really tough shooting night. Jabo's one of those guys, you guard him one-on-one, he tends to score or get fouled. And Knight didn't do either of those things. And then, so that was huge. And then they changed the matchup on Cam Henry. They went from Schweiger and Hall guarding him. They put Kennedy on him and got up underneath him and made his life more difficult. So, credit there to them in terms of the adjustments that they made. And then that was one thing. I think second thing, is we had some pretty decent looks in the second half that were kind of in our wheelhouse. We turned the ball over way too much. But when we got looks in our wheelhouse, we got a couple wide open threes. They didn't go down. We had some looks at the rim, didn't go down. Even going back into that last little stretch, 57-56, we get a really good look. Micah gets what's a great shot for him, just misses. Hobbs comes in, has a great look at a tip and hits the back iron. And so we go from, having a chance to go up 1 there with 1:45 to go to down 1 still. They come down. Norris hits a remarkably hard shot over the top of Micah. We come down, get a layup for Jabo. He had a little bit of an angle. It rolls off, and then we go under a screen and Norris drills it, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of makes and misses. And that was a part of it. Their adjustments. When we had shots in our wheelhouse, we didn't stick them. They made winning plays down the stretch, to Loyola's credit. And then the third thing is, you can't shoot yourselves in the foot. The margins are so small for us in this league and really in this league in general, but for us in particular, you can't turn over 16 times. We gave them, we held them to their 3rd worst points per possession this year in that game behind Michigan State and Auburn, the 2 games they lost. And that was with giving them 8 points on above the break turnovers, which turned into dunks. And then we fouled, of course, at the end there. We literally guard them well enough to hold them in the low 50s. But we can't shoot ourselves in the foot. The 16 turnovers, the 8 points on above the break turnovers, the not getting shots on the rim in those possessions. So it's all 3 of those things. It's a cumulative effect of those 3 areas, and credit them for the adjustments they made, and the guys that they adjusted to, were obviously fantastic. Some of it's a make and miss, which it always is, just like with Bradley, that shot by Coop goes in, doesn't, maybe the game's different, everybody goes out, but that's part of it. And then you can't shoot yourself in the foot. And we made too many mistakes against a team that good to come out on top.
Are the turnovers any sort of concern? Because for the most part this year, I feel like you've been really good in that department. And you kind of also, for me, I know early on this year, you really differentiate turnovers versus above the break turnovers.
Mhm.
Why do you differentiate those
Yeah.
for those that maybe don't understand that terminology and why you separate them?
Yeah, I mean, turnovers, we have been really good until the last two games. And then, we turned over 18 times in Northern Iowa. We turned over 16 times against Loyola. And you're playing, two of the best, if not the two best teams in the Valley. And you're taking away. I've always been a big believer, to win, you have to eliminate losing, right? Like that's the way you win. You win by eliminating losing. It's counterintuitive, but that's how it works. And the number one thing you can do to eliminate losing is to take care of the ball. And we want to play really fast, and we want guys to play loose, but we want to play disciplined. And so we have to be better in terms of our how we value the basketball. And to beat good teams, you can't give them what I call relief points, right? And so that kind of segues into the above the break turnovers. The break on the floor is where the 3-point line breaks, right? So it's like right on that low wing area. And the reason that a turnover is above the break, we differentiate, is because those turn into layups and dunks on basically 100% of the time. When you turn the ball over, a live ball turnover above the break, there is a next to 0% chance that the opponent is not going to get a run out and dunk. And all 4 times we did it against Loyola, they got a run out and a layup or dunk. And so you can't defend that. So it's the worst play in basketball because you're taking a shot away from yourself, and then you're also compromising your defense. And so while we held Loyola to 44%, if we don't have those 4 turnovers, that's 8 less points, and maybe and so you give yourself a chance to win. And in a game like that, that's a 1-point game with a minute and 45 seconds to go. So that's why all turnovers are bad, but ones where you're making aggressive play or it's a dead ball turnover. Points off turnovers to me are probably one of the most overrated stats in basketball, but because they, like you may turn it over and the ball's under the baseline and they dribble it down, they run a play and shoot a 3. Well, that's not, to me, it's the points that lead directly, like your turnover above the break. To me, those lead directly to easy baskets.
Well, let's kind of, to sort of transition in that, and you kind of brought up what was your biggest message to Cam after the game? And we've seen him at his best and know what he is capable of. Obviously, the 6 turnovers was a big issue on Saturday night for him. What really do you communicate to him? And what's the biggest message for him to bounce back after a game like that?
Yeah, I mean, Cam's got to be, Cam's got to be better. And not only Cam, I mean, there's you go up down the roster. We needed, now he turned it over the most, but Coop's got to be better for us to win. Mike's got to be better for us to win. Micah, Jabo's got to be more efficient for us to win. Those guys that play the most, that have the most responsibility, got to be better. And so it as a group, we collectively have to be better. There's no I in team, but there is an I in win, right? And that's for individual performance, right? So the I in win is for individual performance. We need individuals to play better. We need to play better individually and play better collectively. Cam has got to value the ball. He's capable. His problem always, in terms of his peaks are incredibly high. He's got to get where his valleys aren't so low, right? I mean, that's going to be the key for him moving forward at Indiana State and at the next level is leveling out those valleys to where they're not so deep, and that when things go awry, he's mentally tough enough to turn it around inside the game, and not that it's just because I thought the first 15 minutes, he's the best player on the floor, but he was also the best player on the floor the first 15 minutes at Loyola or 12 minutes at Loyola. Then he got in foul trouble and lost his way. And in this game, it just, they changed the matchup to Kennedy. Now he's got to adjust. And that's part of it. Like, when you're a good player and you're seeing one thing, then good teams and good coach are going to adjust. And then you got to adjust to what they're doing. And then, okay, so here's how I counter. And so there were certain things, I mean, we have to, to help him. But he's got to help himself. And most of his turnovers, were really just careless. It wasn't, where he was trying to make a spectacular play. It was driving into crowds, It was falling down. It was, casual passes. They kind of ran the gamut. Most times when people turn the ball over, they tend to be either playing in crowds or trying to hit home runs. By playing in crowds, I mean driving into, a group of people, or trying to hit home runs, trying to make a spectacular pass. That's the majority of turnovers that people tend to make. And his were more of either driving into crowds or just really casual. It wasn't trying to like hit home runs. It was really just more of lackadaisical play. And, you can't afford that. Again, our margins are small. We've got to value every possession at the highest level to have chances. I mean, I'm not, people can debate back and forth. Like, we're not talented enough or experienced enough to beat really good teams if we're going to give them those relief points or take away possessions from ourselves. We just have to clean it up, and he's got to be better. But I told the same thing to Coop, and I told the same thing to Micah, and across the board, like, we individually have to play better.
When you think of Southern Illinois, I was just listening to Coach Mullins earlier today on the conference call. It was kind of funny because I felt like almost mirror images of you and him in terms of him saying, we got to learn how to win. They play Drake tonight, so they have one game before they play you again on Wednesday night in Carbondale. Marcus Damask, unfortunately, he was really bothered with injuries last year and never really got to 100% to where we got to see him from time to time. But man, when he's 100%, he's really, really good. Lance Jones has really had a phenomenal career there as well. What do you make of the Salukis and Coach Mullins and kind of the similar things where it seems like these are two teams that are trying to figure out how to win, because Southern Illinois has been right there, very close to beat Northern Iowa, very good on the road at Missouri State, just like your group has been right there, just trying to find a way to close it out.
Well, I think you look at this league, I mean, that's really top to bottom. The parity has been just amazing to me. Just how close every single game is, and the margins are so small for every team. And so you look at, Southern Illinois, and you could easily say, man, these guys should be, 4-0. You could also say, man, they should be 0-4. But you could say that for Loyola too, right? I mean, and everybody else. I mean, the margins are, and that's the biggest thing is figuring out how to close games, how to get over the hump. And I think when you look at Southern Illinois, Damask is tremendous. He's right there in that group with AJ Green, obviously Mosley from Missouri State, and Prim, and Williamson, all these guys. And for them, honestly, the biggest closer for Loyola has always been Norris, and underratedly so. But as we saw here, and Valpo saw the game before, that guy's a winner through and through, and makes winning plays down the stretch. But they got a really good team. They're sound defensively. They guard as well as anybody in the league. They make it really difficult. They've got really good shooting. 4 of their 5 starters make about a 3.5 to over 2 threes a game. So it's not just Damask. Jones does that for Plankin, Coupette. They got good size inside with Mulan and the guys that come off behind him. Really sound defensively, make you work. Watched obviously the Northern Iowa and Valpo games. Both games, down the wire, down the stretch. They were down 12 to Northern Iowa in the second half, rallied back, took the lead in the final 3 minutes. Northern Iowa came back, and Carter made some really big plays. I think we've seen that movie before, and Noah Carter for them, and Green, and they were able to get over the hump. But it's so evenly matched, and it's figuring out ways to close games, and and how do you do that? And for us, that's part of it. And again, it goes back to every possession mattering inside the game. The one possession you take off, or you're not focused, or you're distracted, that's the one that kills you. And you got to control your controllables, turnovers, etc. So I do think there's similarities. They've played a little differently. I think they played Evansville, and they played Valpo, and they played Northern Iowa and Missouri State. We've played half our games against Loyola in the league, and at Northern Iowa, and obviously Bradley. So here, so it'll be interesting. I think both teams are really hungry to win. They got a big one tonight with Drake, so we'll have to be, in this league, you got to play great just to give yourself a chance. We'll have to play great, and I'm sure feel the same way. It's going to be a coin flip game, and just, probably come down to who executes better that final 4 or 5 minutes.
Don't want to necessarily talk too much about Valpo at that game this weekend, but what I do want to bring up is that is the blackout cancer game on Saturday. I know everybody has been impacted by cancer in some form or fashion. I know the jerseys will be auctioned off, and for all that information, you go to gosycamores.com, find a way to bid on those jerseys, and it's a great fundraiser that we do each and every year for a great cause. For you, Coach Shirts, when you hear cancer, what comes to your mind? How has that maybe impacted anybody that's been close to you? And as you get to that game on Saturday, who maybe will be on your mind when you get to that game? And you, of course, know all the emotions that come with that.
Yeah, of course. I think like you said, everybody has personal stories and has been impacted by cancer. It's just unfortunately all too common. And so I have friends of mine that are in fights currently with it, and obviously my mother passed away 6.5 years ago from cancer. My dad, melanoma, he's fought it and is cancer free, but had melanoma. And so we've all, dealt with it on a personal level. And it's obviously something that they've tried for a long time to figure out ways to solve. And of course, you got a lot of smart people looking at it. And the hope is, you come in, you bring awareness to it, because I think, like I said, everybody in that crowd, every single, player, coach on the floor, everybody around has, everybody in that building will have been impacted by it. If they haven't, they will be, unfortunately. And the goal is to solve it and to eradicate it, to find a way to treat it to where that's not, I think it's the second most common cause of death, in the world. And so certainly, hope, I have a lot of people in my mind, certainly my mom, probably first and foremost, but also my friends that are currently, in that battle. I've gotten old enough now that, as you get towards 50, unfortunately, that's a part of it, as you have friends that, deal with this and so, and I've, like I said, it's hits close to home, and anything we can do to bring awareness. It's a great cause, and something, hopefully fans will join us in supporting, and then go ahead and bid high on those jerseys, and let's do our part to make sure we're doing what we can to help fight, not only fight cancer, but to eradicate it at some point.
Did you say the big 5-0?
Closing in on it. I mean, I'm 46. On the backside, it's in the back of my mind. 3.5 years. I look 60, but I'm still not even 50. So the only good thing I hope is that I can I've looked 60 since I was 30. That eventually, 60, God willing, I still look 60. So let's hope that I'm not, I don't look 90 when I get to 60. So let's fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So you don't look a day older than 30, Coach.
Yeah, 30 plus times 2 probably.
Again, just a reminder, those jerseys that Coach Shirts brought up, and me as well, they will benefit the Rich and Robin Porter Cancer Research Center on campus here at Indiana State. So head to gosycamores.com. The page is already up. You can look at all the jerseys. All the jerseys for the guys that they wear on Saturday are going to be up for auction. So it goes to a great cause. Be sure to use that on Saturday, and we'll worry about the Beacons of Valpo then. Coach Shirts, really appreciate the time, as always, catching up with us. Continue to stay healthy as we continue to do this virtually here for at least a little bit, and look forward to making the trip with you and the guys here on Tuesday to play Wednesday night in Carbondale for another big one here in the Valley.
Look forward to it, Luke. Appreciate it. Not quite as cool as being, one-on-one with you at the, over at 7th and Elm and having the whole crew there, but got to do what we got to do to get through this Omicron, and hopefully we're back together in person here soon.
We will be very, very soon. That was head coach Josh Shirts. Join us again. We will stay tuned to gosycamores.com as well for any updates on when we will back in person. Right now we're shooting to get back in person here in the month of February for our coaches shows. But for head coach Josh Shirts, for head coach Chad Killinger, join us to start off the show. I am Luke Martin saying so long. We will talk to you Wednesday night from Carbondale. The women, they'll have a game first Tuesday night at Holman Center against Evansville, which you can hear that one right here on 105.5 The Legend. For Jim Osborne back in the DLC Media Center, I am Luke Martin. This has been the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill on 105.5 The Legend.